All right, everybody. It's another live stream Thursday. Make sure you're getting your questions in the chat. Celtics are 11 games up in the East. What the hell are we going to talk about? I don't know. You're going to help us out. Bring us some questions. Bring some friends. Let's hang out. Let's enjoy this Boston Celtics team. And this is Green with Envy, so you know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another live stream Thursday edition here on Green with Envy. And today, of course, we are rocking with that three-man weave. This is your boy, Will Weir, checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, first up, we got my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, rocking the beanie today. We got Greg Manakis in the house. How you doing, man?
I'm good. It's actually funny. Right before we got here, Black Sheep Optimist, for those of you that listen to the show, you know that's the theme music. The intro music is Black Sheep Optimist Skywalking, and the outro is Black Sheep Optimist Get This High. But we had a big show on Friday as part of South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas. And during the show, there was this like family at the show. There's this little girl dancing, and you could tell she was having a good time, probably like 6, 7 years old. And then her mom DM'd us on Instagram with her like choreographing dances to our songs because apparently she wants to like be a dancer. And so what we just did, we just stopped by their house and we dropped off a t-shirt for her. So it was like complete surprise to her. It was one of the most heartwarming things in the world. We got some cool pictures that I can share here in a second. But it was crazy, man. Like this little girl was just like absolutely mind blown. The family was so nice. They live in this like super nice house, welcomed us in. So I felt like I made friends. The dad said we just sent ripples through the universe and changed this little girl's life and like changed the course of her life. I was dying laughing, but it was a pretty cool way to end my work day and come onto the pod. I'm in great spirits right now.
I hope this girl makes it big, and one day there's a documentary where she just says it all traces back to this one singular moment, South by Southwest 2024, this band Black Sheep Optimists, and it all changed. And this is going to be the big moment. I love it. I hope that's what happens, and that's what ultimately comes from this. There it is. That's a great picture right there. That's awesome, man. That's good vibes. That's good vibes to start this podcast here. And before we get started here, let me also, of course, welcome in our podcasting cousin from across the pond, leader of the Taylor Gang, lead writer for Celtics blog, one and only Adam Taylor. Adam, how are your vibes today?
Vibes are good, man. Vibes are good. I'm still struggling with the fact that I'm an hour closer to you guys. That's screwing me up left, right, and center.
It's only for like another week or two, right? Because you guys then have your own daylight savings.
Yeah, so the last Sunday of the month, so it's another week yet, right? And look, I'm not moaning. Like I am moaning. Yeah, I'm not very happy about it. I'm complaining. I'm so used to that 5-hour time gap, that 6-hour time gap between us that like the moment I tell you 5 p.m. Eastern, that's 10 p.m. my time. And then when it's not 10 p.m. my time anymore, then it's a problem. What's this? What is this product placement now? Are they paying us for this?
I want to, you know how that one guy a few years ago, he went like super viral on TikTok.
Yeah, the Mexican dude on the
skateboarding to Fleetwood Mac while drinking Ocean Spray. I'm trying to get that Ocean Spray money. And so hopefully they see this podcast and see that I drink it straight out the bottle, baby. Let's go.
There it is. No cups available, or this is just the standard routine?
It drives Danielle crazy.
So I've got our first question come straight through. I know we're trying to vibe right now, but let's
get a couple questions going here.
From Celtics Rising over on Instagram. Thoughts that the Celtics can clinch the first seed this week and have a near 3 weeks of like postseason, preseason games?
I mean, initial thoughts is let's freaking go. That's exactly what we need. We want to see, as we've talked a lot about on the pod, the Celtics taking the last 15 games or so and trying shit, right? They're just trying shit out. I described in the pod the other day, it was almost like they were in a summer camp, right? And they were just trying to do different things. We saw Derek White stat padding for the first time, which was a great interview after the game. If you missed that, where they asked Derek White about stat padding, and he was like, "I didn't like it. He's like, that's not for me." So I think it's great. It's going to be great for the vibes. It's going to be great for everyone to get healthy. Hopefully they don't lose their edge. because, that has been an issue in the past with some of the guys in the team not having that quote unquote killer instinct. But as the referees have allowed more physical play and games are going to get mucked up throughout the last 15 games or so, I think the more that you can rest some guys and decrease the chance for injury, the more you can control that, the better.
So it's going to get a little weird down the stretch here. Like, I'm just pulled it up now. Celtics have, I think it's 3. The magic number is 3 to clinch the 1 seed before the end of March. So it feels very likely that they're going to get either 3 wins or some combination of whatever they would need to get that done with the teams below them. So the 1 seed is going to be wrapped up before the end of March, which is just wild. And honestly, there may be time to spare in March, but by the time they wrap up that 1 seed. And so I think it's going to get a little weird with like some of the lineups. We're already starting to see each night we're getting some impingements, some managements that are coming in night after night. If you just saw for tomorrow night against the Pistons, the injury report is littered with questionables. So Holiday's out again. Basically, everyone else is questionable. Good news, Sam Hauser's probable. So that's a solid update because that is like a real injury that, we had a little bit of concern over. So I think down the stretch here, number one, Celtics are definitely going to lock up that 1 seed for the East. I think the bigger question is when they lock it up for overall in the NBA, because they do have a game coming up with the Thunder, who are still, I believe, about 7-8 games behind. So it's very, very unlikely they get caught for that. But that is one of the few big remaining games for the Celtics. So the question is not, can they lock up the East 1 seed, but can they lock up both the East 1 seed and the overall number 1 seed before the end of March? East, definitely. I think for the overall, I don't have that magic number in front of me here, but that will be a little bit tighter. But yeah, that 1 seed's on lock for sure.
And Will, what was it that you said? Can the Celtics get to 60 wins before anybody else gets to 50? That's kind of the real race right now.
I mean, honestly, there's a good chance they're going to do it before the Bucks. The Bucks are the closest in the East. They're going to do it in the East. They're going to be at 60 wins before anybody else gets to 50, most likely. It just becomes the Thunder and the Nuggets. They're both at 48 wins. I think the T-Wolves are at 47. So likely a team in the West can get to 50 before we get to 60, but it's going to be pretty close. It's a tight race.
All right, I'm gonna bring up a question from YouTube from our guy Southsiders, and I'm gonna kick it to Adam. I'm gonna kick it to Adam first for this one. With KP out for a bunch of games, which player used the extra minutes opportunity best? So the most recent stretch of games who
that so it's gonna be Tillman, right? I mean, if we're just sticking to bigs, it's probably gonna be Tillman just because we've seen more of him, so he's got more comfortable. Definitely looks a lot more versatile when guarding on the perimeter. Can play up to touch, can play drop, can switch. More physical than what other members of that big man rotation are. He can give you a little bit more creation via screening. Can give you a little bit more solidity. Yeah, he can solidify the box outs and stuff like that. So I'd just go with Tillman if we're sticking with bigs, because that's going to be primarily who's absorbing those KP minutes. Yeah, so I think if we're going with in a future sense, I agree with who just like within the last stretch that KP missed. If that's where the question's geared towards, I think it has to be Luke. Like Luke up until basically last night, where I don't think he played very well, and some of that's matchup based. I think that's what we're going to see down the stretch and into the playoffs. Is that some nights are going to be Tillman nights, some nights are going to be Luke nights, and by the time we get to the playoffs, there's going to be very solidified matchups and series where we just might not see Tillman, or we just might not see Luke, depending on who that matchup is that we get when they have their top 7, 8, 9 guys going. And so I do think, we've talked about this a bunch. Luke has been phenomenal. Last night was the anomaly of his last stretch, right? Like, he has been fantastic. We've talked about his aggressiveness. We've talked about his IQ. We've talked about his overall game. I think he had a 12.9 rebound, 6 assist game against the Suns last week. So, Luke has been the guy for me that has really jumped out in the KP absence. And I think combined with Tillman, we're going to see down the stretch a lot of Horford and KP resting. But I think as far as maintaining that competitive level that the Celtics have been on all year, when you have guys like Tillman and guys like Luke, and even if you get 2 out of the 4, let's say, out of the Holiday, White, and the Jays, you get 2 out of the 4 of them, plus that group, plus Hauser, plus Pritchard, you're still a pretty damn competitive team. Like, that's a really competitive team night in and night out, especially when you're playing the Pistons, Wizards, Hawks, so on and so forth. You're still going to get some wins. So I think
Kornet has used the available minutes with KP out to hit the most of his advantage recently. And I think going forward, it's going to be Tillman, because Tillman, you can still see there's moments where they're trying to figure out, oh, wait, he looks like Al, but he's not Al. Let's see, is he going to cut to the hoop? Where's he going to be? And we need to kind of get that rhythm, that flow. So I think Tillman here down the stretch needs to play as much as possible just for the simple reps that he needs to get in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think it's been interesting watching Tillman try to figure out the corner three so far. You know, he hasn't shot it well. He had a couple games where he made one, maybe two. But for the most part, it seems like a shot that he's going to really have to work on. So in terms of things I want to see people work on, going back to the first question, I would love to see Xavier Tillman continue to shoot that corner three. If he misses for the next 15 games, so be it. Let it fly, get comfortable with it, see if you can actually develop a rhythm with that shot. I'd love to see that out of Tillman. And then Adam, we haven't had a chance to talk about last night's game yet. Will and I did our post game. For everyone that's listening, Will and I, for most games, we'll go live unless our lives get in the way, but we'll go live on YouTube. No, on Twitter, right? We go live on Twitter. We go live on Twitter after all the games. So make sure you're tuning in for that. But Adam, what were your thoughts on Luke? Why do you think he struggled so much in the game against the Bucks last night?
Yeah, I just think it was matchup based. Like, he doesn't do well when being tasked with guarding higher up the floor against shifty guards, especially ones that can turn the corner and kind of vary their pace. He also struggles against physical matchups. So Portis is probably a bit of a tough one for him. I think Brook Lopez is a bit of a tough one for him when Brook ventures inside. Plus, Luke's being dragged up onto the perimeter to try and deal with the Lopez pick and pop as well. So you're taking him out of the area where he's most effective. You're putting him into actions now where he needs to switch, where he needs to track back. He's most effective when he can play like a mid to a deep drop and contain ball handlers and kind of split himself between the ball handler and the roll man, so he can choose who to pick up and who to contain. That matchup was tailor-made for Tillman, because Tillman can switch. It doesn't matter if he gets dragged up onto the perimeter. So it's just matchup based for me. It was just a really tough set of circumstances for the skill set that Luke brings. And I think that if he'd had it longer on the floor, maybe he could have figured it out, or maybe he'll need to figure that out, how to deal with that type of floor spacing from a sharp shooting five that can also play some interior, because there's going to be times where he's needed in the postseason if the Celtics play Milwaukee. But that for me was just very much, it was just a really bad matchup for him, both from the guard angle of things and from the big / forward angle of things.
I mean, I think when it comes to Luke, like Milwaukee and Denver seem to be the two matchups that I most imagine we see very little Luke in those series. Those jump out, and if Embiid's back, maybe Philly as well, right? Those are the main scenarios in which I feel like Luke isn't going to have much of a place, and that's going to be basically a strictly Tillman series as that third big, and you're going to get heavy doses of Horford and KP in those situations, because like you said, last night with Portis and Lopez wasn't really the matchup, and then Giannis is the other type of problem that Luke has when it's a guy that can just bully him, under the basket, like Giannis will be able to do. And also Giannis is going to be, coming downhill with a full head of steam. Luke has not that many people have a chance of stopping that, but certainly Luke is not going to hold up very well in that scenario. So I just think for Luke, when it comes to the Bucks and it comes to the Nuggets, it's not going to be him. But I think, in much like we talked about last night, Greg, with Peyton Pritchard, in 85-90% of series, he's going to have a role and he's going to be useful. Yeah. But I think there's just going to be certain matchups that are just not going to lend themselves to being Luke matchups.
Hey, Adam, do we have any more Instagram questions coming through? Because we got a couple from YouTube.
Nah, I go with these. I've had some idiot be like, "Why the hell am I following a Boston page? I must have hit follow by accident." The question is, the question
really
is,
engaging stuff on Instagram these days.
Why did you need to say that rather than just hit the unfollow button?
Because they're funny. That was hilarious. Okay, so I'm going to bring up one tailor-made for you, Adam. This is from Mac Attack 865 on YouTube. Question: do you think the horn set action with White, JB, and JT at the helm should be our primary go-to set in the clutch, with Drew spacing in the corner and KP in the dunker spot? It's so many options from it.
So we're just talking about the straight up the standard horns pickup that they're running where it's
yeah, I think this is where like you and I were kind of talking earlier how you like the horns is the initial set and then you can kind of go to different actions off of like the basic
so it's
set.
just your entry point, right? So you've got so let me read this through again. You've got White, JB, and JT at the helm. So you're gonna have JB and JT on each elbow. You're gonna have White as the initial ball handler. You're gonna have Drew in the corner and KP in the dunker spot. Sometimes they might move KP into a slot position and then or try and have an empty corner that way. Okay, so yeah, I think this is a go-to. I think because as we spoke about earlier, you can go to chin actions from this. You can go to Horns cross from this. You can go to Horns flare actions, which they run a bunch for JB to try and get him downhill and for JT to try and score off the catch.
Is that the horns? Is that Horns chest? From
Horns
LeBron?
chest is Horns cross, basically. Yeah. So that's just a cross screen. You got JB and JT here. And then one of them sets a screen for the other one, who then cuts the way that the screen's coming from. So you come in across, right? So Horns cross, Horns chest. And then we can run thumb, which is a pick and roll. We can run thumb angle, which is a pick and roll at the angle. These are all from that JJ. I'll tell you this, the only time I'll ever use the terminology thumb is for a thumb out action, which is a ball screen into a get action. It's the only time you're ever going to hear me do it. Thumb out, maybe a thumb down, which is basically a down screen pick and roll. Maybe. But jokes aside, yeah, I think that's a primary action that you can use just because of the versatility that it brings. The fact you can set up into that quite quickly from drag actions as well will give you an opportunity to kind of attack out of early offense. I would like them to see them add some more corner actions, some 21, some pistols, just to kind of keep things happening on the corners and keep things flowing when attacking wing defenders more. I don't feel like they prioritize attacking wing defenders in transition as much as what I would like, just because of the wing scoring they have. But yeah, half court actions, the Horns variations are going to be prominent all the way through.
You know, Adam, something I've been thinking a lot about as we watch teams with kind of dynamic point guards and the way that teams are able to manipulate mismatches is that a lot of teams kind of go to that double drag action with the two high screens coming across, and they want to try and get the second screener, the second defender in the screen to be the guy that eventually has to cover the point guard, right? The Bucks were doing that. The Celtics were trying some kind of creative ways to avoid those switches last night. But why do you think the Celtics don't really go to too much double drag? Is there anything that you kind of can think about? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but anything that you can kind of think about why we don't go to that double drag action that's so effective for Dame Lillard, so effective for Trae Young. And we have a guy, and I'm thinking of Derek White, who I feel like would be the prime guy to kind of check that out a little bit more frequently than we do.
I think that a lot of that comes down to the spacing that you have. You don't need to, like, double drag is effectively a way of catching the defense off guard early and creating opportunities to get downhill, right? So then you can get into your spray free actions, which is just driving kick actions. When you have the spacing that the Celtics have, I think the question then becomes, how do you weigh up what's a bigger priority? Do you want 3 guys spacing the floor with 2 guys in an action, so you drag screener and then your ball handler? Or do you want 2 guys spacing the floor, most likely in the corners, or 1 in the corner, 1 on the slot, then have your double drag action? Which one's going to provide you the better spacing? Which one's going to give you more chances of a high quality shot and having release valves if the defense rotates over? So that'd probably be like on the spot without going back and watching a bunch of film. I'd think that the double drag action, because taking 3 players into that action early, it's not giving you a chance to space out, and it's giving the defense more chance to build out to the ball. Because one of the main transition principles is you get back, you get your man in front of the rim, and then you start building out to the perimeter and start shutting things down. If you have 3 guys involved in a transition action, that's very easy for the defense to then kind of load up at that 3-man spot and then start building out to the corners a bit more. I'm spitballing here. I'd like to see them, if they're going to do that, I'd like to see them run the Oklahoma variation, where your second screener screens for the first screener to come off. And then, your first screener essentially becomes the ball handler after the pass, and it just completely blows up the coverage. I think the Lakers run Oklahoma quite consistently, if I remember correctly. Other than that, though, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just down to coaching decisions, player personnel, and whoever the hell else decides that they're making decisions based on place.
I feel like I need a picture book here. This would be great right now if I had all those diagrams built out for me. But I am curious. Did you guys listen to that JJ Redick and LeBron podcast?
Yeah.
What'd you guys think?
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I mean, what do you mean? You can have an opinion.
It made
you might
me
not
sad.
like it. I don't know your opinion.
I'm a bit sad. I'm a bit sad because I wasn't there.
I mean, it's great. The thing about what it is, it's quite arguably the greatest player of all time. Definitely the greatest player of the last 30 years, 25, 30 years, right? Sitting there, getting drunk on wine.
Yeah, I love
talking about basketball and like giving the public access to his ability to just talk through the game, which is great. Because no matter what you can say about LeBron, you can hate him for wine, you can hate him for this, you can hate him for that. Everybody respects his basketball IQ. There's not one person in the world who would say that is a weakness of LeBron James, is his inability to read the floor. He's a supercomputer, right? So just getting access to that is just such a unique opportunity. It definitely makes me feel inadequate having our own basketball podcast talking about it. But I'm sitting here drinking my own juice. LeBron James has his wine. I got my Ocean Spray, pink cranberry, which is a great flavor. So I enjoyed it. I'm going to listen to every episode. I'm going to learn so much from it.
I thought it was good just because it doesn't allow for any, like you said, it's just pure amazement of the computer that LeBron is, without there's no room for him to do some of the media guided stuff that he does, right? Like he plays up to the media constantly, and then we'll pretend like he's not. And I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of LeBron. And this is a media outlet where it doesn't have any of that, right? This is just, let me sip some wine with another guy that knows basketball, and we're just going to talk basketball. And there's not him trying to get there's not him, with any ulterior motives in this, right? And I think that's what makes it pure and enjoyable, because I think that now it eliminates, like to your point, Greg, all the other parts of LeBron that you may have an issue with. Like I respect the hell out of him. He's one of the greatest players of all time. There is that 10 to 15% of him that I think is super annoying at times. There's none of that in this podcast, at least so far from the episode that I've heard. If they're all like this, they're all must listen. Like it was a really well done episode. And I think they're going to start building in some of those diagrams for guys like me. And that will certainly be helpful. But
a guy like you who can't flip a play.
Yes, exactly. I need someone else. I need someone to draw that.
That was so cool when they were talking about that. Adam, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like start to finish. I'm just repeating what you said. Anytime you get to listen to someone like LeBron talk ball, like that's a privilege. Do you ever see them tweets and them memes? Like, can you believe we live in the era of Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Leo Messi, and they've just run for, and they're like, what a time to be alive. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but like now that they're podcasting and we're getting to sit in and listen to those conversations, now it's what a time to be alive. They're talking the stuff that interests me the most, like the chess matches, the little tactical battles. So for me, this is the perfect podcast. Sometimes JJ can upset me a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the entire let's make everyone smarter narrative. I think that fans are going to be fans however they choose to be fans, and just holding this expectation that we need to make everybody better and more educated. That really pisses me off in general, because I'm just like, let people just enjoy shit, man. You don't need to go to school for every little detail of your life. You know what I mean? When you see the analytics community being like, this graph, when it's only basic at linear algebra. Dude, linear algebra doesn't fit with the word basic. I don't need to learn algebra to understand. You know what I'm saying? And like, so this is kind of the aspect that frustrates me. But I think for people that are seeking out this type of content, you're not going to get any better than LeBron James at all.
Yeah. Quick question. So, Greg, you're drinking your Ocean Spray right now, but they have their wine. I've seen other shows every once in a while. They'll crack open a bottle. The three of us are going to coordinate. What's our drink?
For me, it's chocolate milk, bro.
I was hoping we were gonna have like a beer or have like some whiskey or something. You get chocolate milk, Ocean Spray. Adam? What do you drink? Strawberry milk though, right?
Yeah, but I got some Woodford Reserve here.
Ooh, that's okay. A good drink.
Woodford Reserve is good. There we go. Yeah, I got some whiskey. I'm kind of in the mood for a drink. I almost thought about having a drink today, but it is still only like
it's March Madness, bro. If there's ever a time to drink,
I meant to say Happy March Madness to those of you out there that celebrate. We've got one upset in the books. Yo, this day, Duquesne beat
Oh,
who they beat BYU actually. Which
yeah, I actually
both
picked that game because I saw
yeah.
that LeBron's former teammate and coach or the coaches there.
Oh, I just chose it by complete random because I haven't paid attention to any college basketball. But this used to be
And
one
I
of my
don't get
favorite
it over
holidays.
here, dude. Like, I don't get no college coverage, none.
Dude, honestly, like this used to be my favorite sports holiday of the entire year. Just like block out these 4 days and lock in. I'm so out of tune with college basketball that I'll still tune in, but like I'm just not as locked in as I once was. And it was like, yo, where's my bracket at? What's all this doing? And I fill out at least one each year. So I got a little skin in the game and I care a little bit more. But I just haven't been able to lock in quite as much. I don't know the players anymore, although some interesting news that did come out today. The G League Ignite is going to no longer exist after this year. So they're ending that experiment. So maybe some of those guys go to college, maybe they go overseas. So we'll see. That could be interesting. But happy March Madness to those of you that celebrate. I did want to pull up a question. It's a holiday, man. People get really into that shit. But I want to pull up a question here that I actually we got on Twitter before we came on. But I did think this was an interesting one. This is coming from at Celtics _pride_6. Who are the C's better matched up against on paper? Nuggets or Oklahoma City? Obviously referring to what could be a finals matchup. We do play the Thunder here as one of the remaining most important games. The most important game Celtics have left on the schedule is actually a home date against Oklahoma City. But Adam, let's start with you here. You know, Nuggets or OKC, who do you think the Celtics are better matched up against?
Yeah, it's going to be OKC for me, not because of the talent, just because of the experience. So I think on paper, both are quite difficult matchups for Boston. You got Chet on one side, you got Nikola Jokic on the other. Obviously, there's a chasm of difference in talent between those two guys, but effectively
which says a lot because Chet's awesome.
Yeah, but they're effectively going to be hubs of the offense in one way or another. You've got Shai, or Shy, however you want to pronounce it. You've got Jamal Murray. They're both really well constructed, well organized, well coached teams, and I'm a really big fan of Dagnall over in Oklahoma City anyway. But it's the lack of experience for me. I feel like if the Thunder were to make the finals, that would probably be a step too far for them. They'd be really overachieving to get to that point, just in terms of in their timeline, not for what they've done this season. They deserve it for what we've seen based on this season and the performances they've done. But in their timeline, they never intended to be a finals team this year. If you know what I mean? So I feel like the Celtics could probably bully them a little bit in terms of experience. And they're but Boston are just really physical. And I don't know whether OKC could deal with that over a 7-game series, especially with the size that Boston brings in terms of height and just muscular size. Like JT's an animal, JB's an animal. like Tillman's, like these guys are all big dudes. So I think that on paper, I think OKC would be, and neither of them are favorable, but a more favorable matchup for Boston in the finals.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the Thunder's main issue is their lack of size. That's why everybody was clamoring for them to go out and get a big, and they ended up getting Gordon Hayward. They also who they have Biyombo. Is Biyombo on
Yeah,
there?
they had Biyombo.
They got Biyombo, who, you know, I mean, he's big. That's what Biyombo is.
Just the wrong type of size.
Yeah, yeah. And I think yeah, that definitely not the type of player that they needed. They needed someone with a bit more skill than what Biyombo has at this point.
Yeah.
But I do think that with the Thunder, they have these guys that I think would give the Celtics more issues. I mean, Jokic obviously presents his own issues, but like when you think about the way that SGA plays and his ability to get downhill, and there's nobody, like, our strength is our perimeter defense with all the guys that we have. Even with our strength on the perimeter, I don't think there's anyone that can really lock down SGA on the perimeter. You know, Jalen Williams is unbelievable as a second, third option. Him and Chet kind of share those responsibilities. Also a great defender, right? So if you're thinking about guys on the other side that can also give our stars some issue, I think that, you know, Lou Dort is a good perimeter defender. SGA is a good perimeter defender. Jalen Williams is a good perimeter defender. You got Chet contesting shots at the rim. So they do have some elements that could give the Celtics some issues. I think with the Nuggets, we kind of just talked all about this, right? When the Celtics just recently played the Nuggets, but their size, man, like, they're one of the biggest teams out there. Their starting lineup, Jamal Murray, 6'4", 6'5", KCP 6'6", right? Aaron Gordon, 6'8", yoked. Michael Porter Jr.
and one of the top tier athletes too, which I
Right.
think is a big issue as well.
MPJ is 6'10", 6'11", and then Jokic is 6'11" with the longest arms straight up in the league. You know what I mean? Like he's an absolute monster. So that's one of those teams. And Peyton Watson coming off the bench, another guy that could really give Jason Tatum problems in a 7-game series. So I would probably say if I had to choose, I'd rather choose the Thunder. I also think that might just be like a more fun series to allow the Celtics to just like get up and down, whereas the Nuggets, I think it's going to be a bit more of a slog.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easily the Thunder in this scenario of these two choices for the size reasons, for the age reasons as well. Just like you said, Adam, they're well ahead of their timeline, and I think the Thunder are going to struggle to get out of the West. I would be very surprised if the Thunder get out of the West because of their size issues. And there's several teams with size in the West that they're going to have to try to go through. So I think number one, I'd be surprised if the Thunder made the finals for all the reasons that we've talked about. And then I think, if the Celtics had to choose an opponent, it would easily be the Thunder, despite the fact that they have some crazy talent. And if they have 1 million draft picks, so they're not going anywhere. Like that's going to be a team long-term the Celtics will have to worry about if, as Whit Grossbeck likes to say, we're on an 8 to 10 year window and not this 2 to 3 year window that is actually more realistic. Thunder will be around for quite a bit potentially, given all the opportunity they have with those younger guys. I know we got another question here on YouTube. Let's check in here with our guy Birkin. Last night felt like a complete mindset change from Peyton Pritchard. He played like as if to say, I belong in this playoff rotation. Did you guys feel that too? A kind of coming of age sort of thing? Adam, let's go to you here because I know you may have to jump off in a little bit. So let's start with you here. What did you think about Peyton Pritchard's performance last night?
Yeah, I loved it. Loved it. Energy guy came in really, and I mentioned this. I think this was my first takeaway in the takeaways today. For me, this was his I'm here kind of performance. Like he's had a couple of good games. He played well against Washington, played well against Detroit, but you can kind of brush that off a little bit, right? You can be like, okay, so he's playing against Detroit and Washington, the two worst teams in the East, two of the worst defenses in the NBA. Of course, he's going to find a little bit of success there. Doing it against Milwaukee is a completely different type of performance, right? This isn't just, hey, he's playing against two of the worst teams. Hey, he's playing against a team that's legitimately a potential conference final opponent, and he's coming and he's cooking dudes, cooking you off the dribble. He's fighting for offensive boards. He's getting downhill. He's creating contact and then creating space off that contact. He just did so much different stuff that not only helped on the scoreboard and in the box score, but it also helped in the flow of the game. It helped galvanize his teammates. For me, this was one of Pritchard's best performances of the season. And if he can kind of bottle this, and this is what you get from him during the postseason, he's gonna have some big impact in certain series.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last night. I'm assuming this is the bully drive on the baseline here. Adam, is this the bully drive?
Yeah, where he kind of creates contact off the shoulder.
Yeah. This is what I like to see out of Peyton Pritchard here. By the way, I'm showing Adam, for those of you out there that aren't familiar with who the fuck Adam Taylor is, and who sponsored
you
by
want the AARP? Make sure you sign up for that fucking AARP. You know who Adam Taylor is? The AARP.
That's
rep.
funny.
that was just one of those ads. It just pops up. But Adam writes the 10 things, the 10 takeaways for Celtics blog, took over for the legendary Keith Smith coming into this season. So Adam's done a great job with that. This is from Adam's 10 things article that he writes after every game on Celtics blog. He also has his own Substack called the Celtics Chronicle. Make sure that you subscribe to that. It should be in the show description. But I just want to play this clip here from Pritchard driving on Pat Connaughton because I think it shows the maturity that Birkin is referencing here, the physical maturity, the strength that we're seeing out of him. He's playing with a fuck you attitude, and I love seeing that out of Peyton Pritchard.
Gallinari able to stretch him and put it on the deck. That's a much harder guard for Cornette than Tillman. Boy, look at Peyton Pritchard. Gallinari able to stretch him and put it on the deck. That's a
And I just love seeing that aggressiveness and seeing that little chicken wing. It seems like the Celtics are getting really good at the chicken wing and the shoulder bump without actually extending their arm. Like the amount that Jaylen Brown just like straight up like elbows people in the gut every time he drives to the basket. It's pretty amazing how he gets away with that, because it's not really a foul. He's just owning his space, but he's just so goddamn strong. And Peyton Pritchard is definitely showing the physical maturity here to prove that he can play against the more physical teams with size.
Yeah, I mean, Pritchard's been awesome, man. Since the All-Star break, his last 14 games, like he's been really, really good. It's funny, the Celtics, I feel like the first thing I think of when I think of Peyton Pritchard is him as a shooter. Celtics have 4 guys shooting over 40%. Peyton Pritchard's not one of them. He's actually at 38%, so he's below that mark. But in the 14 games since the All-Star break, he's averaging just under 10 points per game, shooting just under 43% from 3 and right at 48% from the field. And, you know, he's played over 30 minutes in the last 3 games, played over 25 minutes in about 5 or 6 of those 14 games. So this has been a really strong second half from Peyton Pritchard that I think should give people a lot of confidence going into the postseason. And I touched on this a little bit last night. Like it's crazy to think about. A lot of teams around the league are probably like, damn, I wish the Celtics didn't lock him up for that 4 years, $30 million, what could turn out to be a pretty team-friendly deal. Like, there's a lot of teams that are like, I would love to pay him probably 12 to 14 million to come over to my team and play 25 to 30 minutes every night. Definitely a guy that can handle it, but sorry, suckers. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Locked up by the Celtics. Any other questions on Instagram right now, Adam? Or is this...
Nah, it's been dead over there, man. It's been dead.
All right. Well, then fucking...
Very upset.
All right. Let's we won't worry about them then, but I think that's a good place for us to kind of wrap up here. I mean, Celtics are 11 games up in the East, guys. Like, we're going to be looking for things to talk about. There's going to be some fun, weird Celtics lineups, I think, down the stretch that we're going to have a chance to dig into. So we'll make sure we hit that. Celtics got games coming up. Let me see. What's their schedule this week? I know Friday night against the Pistons. And then is it Sunday night, their next game? I'm checking this on the fly here. Just stalling for time while I pull it up. My computer's loading. Let's see what we got. Yeah, okay. So actually, it's Friday and Saturday back-to-back this weekend. So Detroit, Chicago on Saturday, day off, and then at Atlanta. So this is a pretty solid road trip coming up here for the Celtics. At Detroit, at Chicago, day off, at Atlanta, 2 days off, another at Atlanta, and then actually a really fun one next Saturday night at New Orleans. So an interesting stretch here. Chicago's actually been playing some really good basketball lately, so that could be a funner game than we're giving it credit for, or a tougher game, I should say, than we're giving it credit. But let's see what happens here, guys. Not going to be a lot of stress, not a lot of drama. So we'll do with it what we can here, and we'll check in when we get the opportunity to. I know on Sunday we'll be back with a full 3-man weave. We'll try to have some type of coverage for you guys over the weekend. So make sure you are locked in across the Green with MV socials, at Green MV Pod, at Adam Taylor NBA. Make sure you're subscribed to YouTube. Jump in the Discord. We'll have everything you need in there as well. Greg, Adam, anything you guys got before we sign off on this one?
I love Boston basketball.
It's a pretty good time to be a Celtics
Basketball's fun.
That's right, guys. All right, y'all. We'll catch you guys later. Here's some Black Sheep Optimists, and peace.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You cut me to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating your river. I call to see if you open, you know I hope you deliver. Every time you get